I see Tourism Minister Lindiwe Sisulu. You know she's controversial, so we will absolutely grab her. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm not going to call you controversial for nothing. I will move beyond that. Let's speak about the president's speech. Your greatest takeaway.
My greatest takeaway is that I don't know how he managed to incorporate all of government into one speech, but it was a very comprehensive speech, touching on most of the, hot issues that we need to deal with. And you can see from the length of the speech and the issues that he's talking about that this government has a lot to do. And we're going into an election period next year, so I think it was a very necessary kind of assessment of where we are, and each one would be, able to see how far we're going to get to before next year.
Last year, tourism was left out of the State of the Nation address. Yes. It is a key industry. It does bring in revenue to the country, much needed money to the country. Yes. Are you satisfied with where he went as far as your sector? Did he go anywhere near it? Are you satisfied?
No, he did go into it, and I think that for me it was a happy ending. Look, the economy is driven by certain aspects of our departments. I'm one of those drivers of the economy. I bring in revenue into the economy out of tourism. So we invite tourists. We want to make sure that they enjoy South Africa. We want to showcase South Africa. It's a beautiful country with beautiful people like you. Smile.
This is true. This is true. I don't want to go into Tottenham Hotspur, but I want to ask you.
No.
He speaks about a government reconfiguration.
Yes.
Are you comfortable where you stand that you'll continue to serve? You've been pitted by many as a minister who actually should fall off the wayside. What are your views?
Well, I got that question before. I wasn't born to be a minister. I was born in the ANC, and I will die in the ANC. I'll continue serving the ANC and nobody can kick me out of there or even invite me into there. It's a birthright that all of us black people have. You're either in or you're.
And if you are left out, what are you going to do with your life going forward?
I have the ANC. That's why I was saying that I was born in the ANC. That's a home that I will retire into and make sure that we can bring as much, value for what was fought
the
for
governing party
and what was fought for by our people.
All right, thank you so much. That's Minister Lindiwe Sisulu speaking there about the State of the Nation, addressing she doesn't know how the president found the space to include all of the different departments and all of their different needs. Joining me now it's getting very busy here at the precinct, is the UDM leader Bantu Holomisa. We spoke to you a little bit earlier on. You spoke to Eyewitness News earlier on about expectations. Have your expectations been met? Was this a speech that you wanted to hear? Did it strike the right tone?
The speech is not different from the speeches we have had before. But what has let the President of South Africa down and the South African government is the lack of implementation of his lofty ideals. What we also need to know, who is going to be in charge or coordinate this project since there is a disaster been declared. I would suggest that the DBSA should be appointed to manage all these projects. Whoever wants to requisition money for electricity, energy related, in line with the disaster management declaration, they should work through DBSA. Otherwise, it's going to be a free-for-all. We are going to experience the same thing which we experienced under COVID-19.
I think you answered the question of how they get around the issue of credibility, because we are dealing with a government that has lost so much credibility over their handling of issues like a state of disaster in the past. I want to take you to what happened here. What was your reading of what happened when the EFF was booted out of Parliament? That becomes part and parcel of what happened. It's not the core message, but I just want to get your views, General, as somebody who was sitting there watching.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think we have a proper leadership in this Parliament, because we should be talking to parties even before the State of the Nation or any debate to say, what are the problems? How can we improve the communications? Why do we always quarrel with each other? So, but that is the problem of the Speaker and other people as well as the EFF leadership. So the UDM is not prepared to
get involved. I can respect that. My parting shot to you. Issues like the cannabis industry were part of the Operation Vulindlela. They were put under the presidency. Red tape. Those are still work in progress from his report back. You spoke about implementation earlier on what needs to be done in order to move the needle forward. Is it a question of political will? Because he comes back and maybe they've taken 2 steps, but they haven't moved as far enough as they need to.
They will not be able to implement anything as long as they allow the Luthuli House to usurp the powers of the Public Service Commission. The civil service we have, or civil servants we have, are not trained because we grab anybody in the streets and make a DG or chief director. People who have not even done an induction courses. So forget about this plan he's talking about. Nobody is going to implement it.
All right. I see Minister and the Presidency, Mondli Gungubele, walking towards me now. Now, the Minister yesterday spoke about hope and working together, and our unity was the answer. Mondli, thank you so much for joining us. Let's speak about the message. Yesterday, you spoke about Rasi Erasmus and working together. Today, we listened to the President, and in essence, he kind of repeats the line of not leaving anyone behind. Please tell me, from the words of the Minister and the Presidency, what your takeaway was.
Regarding?
Obviously, the President's speech. That's the only reason why we gathered here, Mondli.
No. I think Tshidi, the President, has touched a number of critical areas. He dealt at length with the issue of employment, both from the point of what has been achieved and what is still to be achieved. The President dealt with the issue of poverty, and then especially with the issue of social wage, which is 60% of our budget, and what work is being done there. The President, of course, dealt with the issue, I think, is employment, and then poverty, and then inclusion. Also, the President dealt with a lot of economic interventions, infrastructure, and more critically, huge investment, which is unprecedented with regard to the project preparation capability, where he says about 600 million is being deployed. Because what has actually been realized over years is that a lot of things that actually make our infrastructure projects to collapse is because the ratio of expenditure to the amount of a big project in terms of giving capacity, that has always been left out, in particular in rural provinces and rural municipalities.
How does the President explain the contradiction of saying that he's adding another ministry to the presidency? That's a Minister of Electricity in the presidency. Yet he speaks about how a lot of these tasks are actually they're repetitions, and that you can cut down the money, at least 27, I think, billion, he said, that if you deal with that and you work around dealing with the contradictions and where you have repetitions of ministries. I think my phone is not here, but he spoke about the repetition. And for me, if you're worried that there are duplications in your system, yet you continue to bloat your presidency, there is a problem. That's a contradiction, surely.
Usually, in any situation, Tshidi, let me use employment as a good example. Every year, there's a loss and creation of employment. But our target is that we must create the net results. The fact that you are increasing employment doesn't mean that you're not losing employment. What am I trying to say? If the President is going to rationalize, the degree of rationalization may not mean that there will be no new ministries, but what is going to be observed and critiqued is the ultimate structure. I can give you an example. Let's say the President wants to reduce ministries. He may actually create one ministry and reduce 3 ministries. The ministry has
Yes, you did speak about reconfiguration,
yes.
Sure.
So in other words, the most important thing now is the purpose of the Minister of Electricity, which is focusing on the magnitude of the electricity crisis. That is what we are more concerned about.
And South Africans will be concerned about tender bonanzas as this happens.
Tender?
South Africans will be worried about tender bonanzas. South Africans don't want to see a repeat of what happened with our funds when COVID happened.
I hope you heard what the President said.
I've heard him in the past, and I've seen what his comrades have done.
No, wait a bit. Okay. I'm sure you heard what the President said about the AG. Let me give you an example.
He said it about the AG before.
No, wait, Tshidi. We are from the AG in this, since the disaster in the KZN, from the beginning, worked together with all our structures from the beginning. Everything was started tandemously, As a result, now I can tell you, you don't have scandals reported about what to call the disaster in KZN. The track record of the AG being there in real time, the results are there to account for itself from KZN. We're looking forward for the same situation to continue here. So the issue of AG, if you only critique it in place of COVID, and you don't only critique it, or you don't go further and look at its performance in KZN Natal, it means you have declared that intervention a failure.
Thank you so much. That's Mondli Gungubele, Minister and the President.